Okay.
How does a punnett
these.
square work?
Yeah, punnett square is a way to predict offspring of two parents, or what I should say is it's a way to predict certain characteristics of offspring of two parents, two given parents. Becca, if you could, Becca's already doing it. Becca's setting up a punnett square for me, fantastic. I'm just gonna give a little bit of background before we jump over and look at what a punnett square is and how you use it. So, and I think I'm just going to speak generally, thinking about humans here. I'm going to reference humans specifically, but remember that this is true of all different kinds of living creatures. There might be some different nuances depending on what type of creature we're talking about. But let's just think about in humans, right? All humans are born because they got genetic information from two parents, from a mother and a father, right? So. As we all know and probably learned, right, what we get is the combined genetic material from our father's sperm and our mother's egg. Now, we each have 23 pairs of chromosomes in our bodies, and those chromosomes, a chromosome is like a system of organization for a strand of DNA. And in the nucleus of every single cell in our bodies, we have 23 pairs of chromosomes. So in other words, 46 individual chromosomes that contain all of the essentially instructional code for building our bodies, really for building the protein in our bodies, but that translates to everything else eventually. So when the sperm and the egg combine, when you get that information from your mom and from your dad, right, the only cells in our body that don't have a total of 46 chromosomes, because remember we have 23 pairs. The only kinds of cells that we can produce that have fewer than that are sperm and eggs. Sperm and egg cells have 23 chromosomes that are unpaired. So, you know, your dad has 46 chromosomes. Of those 46, each pair, one from each pair is going to be taken and put into a sperm cell. And which of those two pairs is taken is random depending on the sperm cell. Same goes for your mom. The egg cell that's developed is just going to have 23 chromosomes, half of the chromosomes that she has, one from each of those 23 pairs. Then when they combine to form the zygote, the initial dual cell that will eventually become you, that contains now you have 23 chromosomes, 23 more of the same pairs, and they all combine together to make your 23 pairs of chromosomes, 46 total. So the idea is that every strand of DNA we have has like a sister strand of DNA, right? So I've got the set of DNA that codes, for example, for my eye color, and I got a strand of DNA that has that piece of code, my eye color code. I got a strand of that from my mom and a strand of that from my dad. And how those two codes sort of work together ultimately predicts what my eye color would be. Now my eyes happen to be blue, they're a little bluish green, and I thought what we do is we look at brown and blue eyes. What we tend to talk about here is if we've got this gene, so that the part of my DNA that makes eye color, we're going to call that a gene. It's a set of instructions that code for a specific purpose, for a specific protein, really. But we'll say that there's a specific protein that's going to give me my eye color, so that's the gene that does it. And I've got two chromosomes with that gene. One chromosome came from my mom, one came from my dad. Each of those two different, what we're going to call those is alleles. And the idea is that the allele is just the one I got from my mom or the one I got from my dad. I have two alleles for any given gene. So if we could jump to my screen really quickly.
Not mine.
Not
Wait,
Becca's
I'm
screen,
getting mine
my
ready.
screen, because Becca is doing it. Oh,
That's
Becca,
a
you already got
surprise.
it all set up. You're amazing. Okay, so here's the idea, right? So we get a genetic contribution from one parent and a genetic contribution from the other parent, one from the mom, one from the dad, right? And you have to remember that the dad himself has two possible things that he could give because the dad had a mom and a dad that gave him a pair of chromosomes that contain this gene. The mom also had two possibilities of what she could give because she had two parents. And so these genes in her body, there's a pair of those genes in her bodies, two alleles. So what we're looking here for is sort of trying to predict, given the characteristics of the parents, what's going to happen with the children. So now let's think more specifically about eye color. So in humans, we have, and I guess I should say, with these different types of traits, with these alleles, what we tend to have is that one allele will be dominant over another type of the allele. So in the case of the allele, the gene that produces eye color, brown eyes are dominant over blue eyes. And what that means is that if we had parents with brown eyes mating together, it would be very likely to get a child with brown eyes. And if we had a parent with brown eyes and another parent with blue eyes and they mated together, the genetics that contribute to the brown eyes would likely cover up the genetics that contribute to the blue eyes. Let's look at that a little more specifically. So if we could jump to Becca's screen.
You can tell me if I'm wrong on anything.
No, I saw it for just a second and it looked perfect. So once we get it up, we'll see if it actually, beautiful. Oh my God, so wonderful. So actually, okay, so the only thing, Becca, is what you're looking at there is actually the genotype.
Genotype.
So okay, actually, I should.
No,
No,
the
left
phenotype
side
is on the
That's
right.
right. The left side is the genotype. The right side is the
here's
phenotype.
my. This is right. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is my
That's phenotype. Okay, good.
And then these
Good.
are the genotypes.
Okay, great. So, and while Becca's putting that in, I'm just going to explain. So, we can classify you in two ways. We can talk about your genotype, which refers to, okay, which two alleles do you have for that gene? That's your genotype. And then we could talk about your phenotype, and that's like, what do you actually look like?
How does it express
How
itself?
does it express itself? Exactly. Do you have brown eyes? Do you have blue eyes? I have blue eyes, so that's my phenotype. Becca, are you brown-eyed?
I'm hazel.
Hazel-eyed? Okay.
What does that count? What does that?
Look,
Why
Becca,
are you laughing at me?
I don't want to minimize the hazel
like
quality of your
greenish
eyes.
brown.
We're gonna go with Becca's brown eyes. I have blue eyes.
I have brown eyes.
Look, mine are aquamarine. Okay, I just didn't want to complicate things. Okay, so Becca's are hazel, mine are aquamarine, but technically speaking, hers are brown, mine are blue.
They're hazel.
I have the recessive trait. Becca has the dominant trait, right? So let's imagine here. Let's take a mom. Let's say, should the mom have blue eyes?
Mama should have blue eyes.
Let's give the mom blue eyes. So let's say that the mom has blue eyes. The only way that the mom can have blue eyes is if both of her alleles are the recessive blue trait. If she has, and we're going to represent those by two little b's. And I should just say, in the genotype, we represent the different alleles, or the different possibilities of alleles through a big letter, small letter combination. Big letter being the dominant trait, small letter being what we call the recessive trait. So dominant is always going to beat out recessive. But in the case of the mom here, she's got, from her parents, she got both recessive traits, both codes for blue eyes, and that allowed her eyes to turn out blue. Now let's say the dad is...
He's brown-eyed, but he has a blue allele.
Perfect, I love it. So dad has brown eyes. His phenotype is a brown-eyed person, but his genotype is dominant recessive, what we would call heterozygous. So we would call mom homozygous recessive, because homozygous, again, zygous refers to that idea of zygote, that original combination of the two, of the genes from mom, genes from dad. And she's homozygous because homo means the same, and she's got both the same genes, recessive, recessive. So we call her homozygous recessive. If we had a person that was big B, dominant trait, they would be homozygous dominant. But Papa here, the dad, has...
Did I get it right?
Just heterozygous. Because heterozygous implies that you got mixed, and it's not dominant or recessive, it's both, right?
Okay.
So sorry, Becca. Just heterozygous.
I'm just.
You're doing so good. It should be noted, right? Becca is a math teacher, and she is killing it here.
I'm just remembering this from biology back in high school. This is like a long time ago.
Right? Okay, so.
But I liked it.
Awesome. So the idea is that as we combine the two possibilities from dad and the two possibilities from mom, we're left with 4 total possibilities that we could have in our offspring. And so we set up the Punnett square in this way because it allows us to clearly lay out, okay, what are the possibilities that we could get? In the top right corner, dad can contribute a dominant brown-eyed allele.
Top right?
Oh, sorry, I meant top left.
Okay.
I'm doing lots of things
Dad's
at once here.
giving big B.
Dad's going to provide big B, and mom is going to provide little b. And so in this case, there is and what I should also say is the 4 squares represent 100% of all possibilities of children that mom and dad could have. So each individual square represents 25% probability of what the child could be. So there is a 25% chance we're going to end up with a heterozygous, a child with a genotype which is heterozygous, and a phenotype brown eyes, because the large B should overtake the little blue B, the large brown B. Are we cool so far?
Yes.
In the top right-hand corner, look, Becca's so good at this. In the top right-hand corner, dad again is going to contribute a large big B, a dominant brown eye allele, and then mom is going to contribute the little recessive blue eye allele. Once again, the large brown eye allele, the dominant trait, wins out. So we have a heterozygous genotype, right? Inside of the child, their genes are mixed. They have one dominant, one recessive, but what we see, what we ultimately see represented is a brown-eyed person.
And
Okay.
they could have blue-eyed kids too, because it's like they're just like Papa.
Oh, that's a great point. They're just like Papa, and Papa's capable of having blue-eyed kids, which we're about to see. So in the bottom left box, mama is going to contribute a little b, but so is dad. And so we get both recessive. So this would be my case, right? Both of my parents contributed the recessive gene for blue eyes, and I ended up with blue eyes.
Do they both have blue eyes?
No, my mom has blue eyes, my dad has brown eyes. So this actually, this could be
this
like my parents. And you know
is Sam.
as I'm thinking about it, that is true. So I'm like, I am blue-eyed. And let's just finish this, and we'll, because my brother actually, well, let's just keep going. So the bottom right-hand corner,
Wow.
bottom right-hand corner there is going to be, again, dad is going to contribute little b. Mom is going to contribute little b. We've got two recessive traits. They're going to work together to create blue eyes. So we have what I would call a homozygous recessive genotype, and the phenotype is blue eyes.
So you essentially have a 50% chance of getting both.
Yeah, perfectly said, Michael. So we have 50% chance of brown eyes, 50% chance of blue eyes, and just to tie this together, I didn't even intend this to be the case, but I have blue eyes. My father has brown eyes. My mom has blue eyes. He must be heterozygous, my father. My brother has brown eyes, and I have blue eyes. So there really was. I mean, my parents had
What's
two
your
kids.
brother's name?
My brother's name is Tom.
Tom.
Sam and Tom. Right, so and it could have turned out a different way. It just they could have had two brown-eyed children. They could have had two blue-eyed children. It's really just probability, right? What's possible here? What possible combinations? What would we expect? But we worked out pretty statistically perfectly. We got 50% of the children brown-eyed, 50% of the children blue-eyed, right?
Yeah.
So this is how a Punnett square works. There are levels of complication you can add to it, and certainly as you get into thinking about how complex DNA is, you understand that predicting these traits can be fairly complex as we look at real living organisms. But when we boil it down to just one trait, blue eyes, or you'll often see in science class, they'll look at the color of flower petals, like are you going to produce white flowers or purple flowers,
yeah.
right? Those are sort of classic examples. And it's really cool to see that there is in the case of the flowers, sometimes what you'll do in class, you'll grow a lot of pea plants and actually see, hey, did we get the numbers that we expected based on the parentage here? The example of me and my brother doesn't provide a lot of data, but it's a good example, I think, that shows that these things tend to fall out into these proportions.
It's also kind of cool because you could figure out that your dad must have been heterozygous based on kind of that fact.
Yeah, and a thing that I had literally never thought about before.
You didn't do a blood test on it.
I have thought about blue eye, brown eye, recessive dominant traits fairly frequently, and I teach this regularly, but I never stop to think, wait, I have blue eyes, my brother has brown eyes, my mom has blue eyes, my dad has brown eyes, like what must have been the combination? And it's kind of cool because just from observing that stuff, the stuff that I can see, I can make a pretty accurate prediction about what's going on in my parents' DNA. That's amazing.
It is pretty cool. I like these. I think they're fun.
Cool. Well, thanks for the help there, Becca. I appreciate it.